Jesus reveals you are God. Secret knowledge banned from the Bible. Imagine everything you've been taught about God and spirituality was only half the truth. What if, hidden beneath the surface of traditional teachings, lies a deeper, more profound message? One that speaks not of a distant God, but of divinity within you? This knowledge, once widespread, was later concealed by those who feared its power. Today, we are rediscovering this ancient wisdom, which has been kept hidden for centuries. Jesus didn't merely speak of God as a figure far removed from us. He revealed something much more intimate and empowering, something that some didn't want you to know. A truth kept in the shadows. At the heart of these hidden teachings lies a profound and radical idea. You are not merely a mortal being, confined to the limitations of human existence. Jesus himself, in his teachings, hinted at something much more revolutionary, that we, too, possess a divine nature. This idea, however, was far too dangerous for the early church to fully endorse. The implications were staggering. If humanity could recognize its own divinity, the control structures that relied on intermediaries, rituals, and religious authority would crumble. A decentralized faith, where individuals could access the divine within themselves, threatened to dismantle the very fabric of ecclesiastical power. For centuries, this empowering truth was systematically buried. The early church, particularly during its formative years, made decisive efforts to suppress such radical ideas. Writings that contained these teachings were either meticulously destroyed or hidden away. What remained were fragments, pieces of a greater puzzle that would take centuries to reassemble. Yet, despite these efforts to erase this wisdom, some of it survived. Ancient texts, once condemned as heretical, have resurfaced over the years, challenging the long-held narratives of orthodoxy. These forbidden writings offer a glimpse into a different interpretation of Jesus' teachings, one that emphasizes personal divinity and the potential for every individual to tap into that divine source. One of the most significant of these rediscovered texts is the Gospel of Thomas, one of the oldest known Gospels, which presents an unorthodox view of Jesus' message. Unlike the canonical Gospels that often portray a distant, transcendent God, the Gospel of Thomas speaks of a divine presence that exists within each of us. In this text, Jesus does not describe God as an external force, ruling from the heavens, but as a presence residing deep within the human soul. He claimed that those who truly grasped this message would never die, not in the sense of physical immortality, but rather through a profound understanding of their eternal, divine nature. Jesus' teachings, as depicted in the Gospel of Thomas, were not intended to incite fear or submission. Instead, they were meant to offer liberation, a path toward self-realization. This knowledge, though kept in the shadows for centuries, holds the key to unlocking your own divine potential. The power to shape reality, to transcend the limitations imposed by the material world, lies not in external forces but within yourself. And it is this very concept of self-empowerment and inner divinity that the Church found too dangerous, leading to the suppression of such knowledge. However, history shows that truth, no matter how deeply buried, has a way of resurfacing. And today, these teachings are once again coming to light. Unveiling the power within. Reflect on the spiritual teachings you might have encountered during your childhood. Many of us were raised to believe that God is a remote, omnipotent being who exists outside of us, observing our actions from a distance and passing judgment. This portrayal of God as a distant authority creates a sense of separation, where humans are seen as subordinates, disconnected from the divine essence. But what if this understanding is incomplete, or worse, a distortion of a greater truth? What if the divine presence is not an external entity, but something intrinsically woven into the fabric of your very being? Ancient writings, long deemed too dangerous or blasphemous by religious authorities, are now revealing an alternate narrative, one that challenges conventional beliefs. These outlawed texts suggest that you are not merely a passive subject of God's will, but an integral part of the divine itself. This is not a teaching of defiance, but one of empowerment. The divine is not a distant, unattainable force. It is something within you, something you are inherently connected to. This truth, while hidden for centuries, has not entirely disappeared. Even within the pages of the Bible, suppressed fragments of this knowledge still remain, waiting to be rediscovered. Take, for example, the Gospel of John, where Jesus makes one of his most startling declarations. You are God's. These words, though brief, carry an explosive meaning that shattered the established religious worldview. Jesus was not merely speaking metaphorically. He was revealing a divine truth that humanity has long struggled to comprehend. This statement directly contradicts the idea of a distant God, reinforcing the radical notion that divinity is not exclusive to a celestial being, but something that resides within every one of us. It is a call to recognize the divine spark inside ourselves, to understand that we are not separate from God, but deeply connected to the divine source. Even the story of Adam and Eve, a narrative often interpreted as humanity's tragic fall from grace, might carry a deeper, more empowering message when viewed through this lens. Traditionally, the tale of Adam and Eve has been seen as an account of disobedience and punishment, with humanity forever burdened by original sin. However, what if this interpretation misses the point entirely? Some ancient texts suggest that the serpent, long vilified as the embodiment of evil, may have actually been a guide, an agent of enlightenment, offering Eve the opportunity to awaken to her divine nature by eating from the tree of knowledge. Rather than a story of downfall, the narrative becomes one of awakening, where Adam and Eve begin to realize their own potential to be like God, as the serpent had promised. Through this perspective, the story of Adam and Eve transforms from a tale of shame and guilt into one of empowerment and self-discovery. It suggests that the knowledge they gained was not a curse, but a gift that opened their eyes to the divine potential that lies within all of us. In this light, Jesus' message becomes clearer. The divine is not a distant, judging force. It is an intimate, indwelling presence that resides in each of us, waiting to be recognized and embraced. By unveiling this power within, we are invited to transcend the limitations of our material existence and recognize our true nature. This is the essence of the secret knowledge that was kept hidden for centuries, a truth that challenges not only our understanding of God, but our understanding of ourselves. And speaking of unlocking hidden truths, if you're ready to attract huge wealth effortlessly starting today, you won't want to miss this. A rogue NASA scientist has uncovered shocking wealth secrets that could change everything for you. The link is in the comments below, so be sure to check it out and discover how you can tap into this extraordinary knowledge. But for now, let's get back into our exploration. Rethinking the Garden of Eden. Remember the serpent in the Garden of Eden? For generations, we've been told that it was evil, tempting Eve to sin by eating the forbidden fruit. But what if the serpent wasn't an enemy? According to some ancient texts, like the secret Gospel of John, the serpent was actually trying to help Eve. Its purpose was not to lead humanity into sin, but to awaken them to their divine potential. By eating from the tree of knowledge, Adam and Eve were not disobeying God. They were embracing the wisdom that made them godlike. In this alternative version, the story of Eden is not about punishment and exile, but about awakening and empowerment. Jesus' role in this narrative is one of a guide, helping humanity to understand that they are not separate from the divine, but integral to it. The suppression of radical ideas. This interpretation of Jesus' teachings was considered too dangerous by the early church. If people began to believe that they could connect with God directly, without the need for priests or religious institutions, it would undermine the authority of the church. and so these ideas were declared heretical, and many of the writings that contained them were banned or destroyed. One of the most significant events in this process was the Council of Nicaea, which took place in 325 AD during the reign of the Roman Emperor Constantine. It was at this council that church leaders gathered to decide which of Jesus' teachings would be considered official doctrine. Some of the most empowering messages, those that encouraged personal divinity and self-reliance, were left out. These messages, found in the Gospel of Thomas and other early Christian writings, were seen as too radical, too liberating. The fear was simple. If individuals could directly access divine knowledge, the Church's control over spiritual life would weaken. By making these teachings illegal and labeling them as heresy, the Church ensured that only a select version of Christianity would survive. Discoveries that challenge the status quo. But history has a way of revealing what has been hidden. In 1945, a cache of ancient writings was discovered in the small Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi. Among these documents was the Gospel of Thomas, which had been buried for over 1,600 years. These texts contained sayings of Jesus that are not found in the Bible, including the profound idea that the kingdom of God is not in some faraway place, but within each of us. This knowledge challenged the established order, offering a different path to spirituality, one that didn't rely on the Church as an intermediary. The power of divinity, according to these teachings, wasn't something we needed to earn through obedience or rituals. It was already within us, waiting to be realized. The battle for spiritual power. It's easy to see why such ideas would have been threatening to the early Church. If people began to realize that they could connect with God on their own, the hierarchical structure of religious power would begin to crumble. The Church depended on being the gatekeeper between humanity and the divine. By controlling access to spiritual knowledge, it maintained its influence. But the Gnostics, an early Christian group, believed something entirely different. For them, the path to God was not through rituals or dogma, but through personal experience. The word gnosis, meaning knowledge in Greek, referred to a deep spiritual understanding that comes from within. It was through this gnosis that one could awaken to their own divine nature, bypassing the need for external authority. Reclaiming your divine spark. The Gnostics believed that each of us carries within us a spark of the divine. This spark is a fragment of God, trapped within the material world. The goal of life, according to their teachings, is to awaken this divine spark and return to our true spiritual nature. But to do this, we must first understand the hidden truths that have been kept from us. These early teachings suggest that the God of the Old Testament, often depicted as vengeful and demanding, was not the true God. Instead, they believed that a higher benevolent force, one of pure light, created the universe. And this light, this divine essence, exists within us. Jesus' true mission, they argued, was not to impose rules, but to help us rediscover this inner divinity. A new understanding of good and evil. In the traditional Christian narrative, God is the source of all goodness, while Satan represents evil. But the Gnostics offered a more nuanced view. They believed that the material world, with all its suffering and limitations, was created by a flawed being they called the demiurge. This figure, they argued, was not the true God, but a lesser deity who mistakenly believed he was the only creator. The serpent in the Garden of Eden, in this interpretation, was not a villain but a liberator. By offering Eve the fruit of knowledge, the serpent was helping humanity break free from the demiurge's control. It was an act of rebellion, not against God, but against ignorance and falsehood. Embracing the light within. In today's world, a resurgence of ancient teachings is challenging the long-standing notions of good and evil, offering us a deeper and more profound understanding of the human experience. These teachings, rooted in early Gnostic thought, invite us to reconsider our approach to spirituality and morality. Rather than focusing on an external battle between cosmic forces of good and evil, the true struggle, according to Gnostic wisdom, takes place within each of us. It is not about vanquishing external demons or seeking divine intervention to overcome trials. It is about confronting the ignorance and misconceptions that cloud our perception of the divine truth. The Gnostic message is clear and transformative. The real struggle lies not between external forces of good and evil, but between ignorance and understanding. When we remain ignorant of our own divine potential, we become trapped in the illusion of separateness and limitation. The material world, with its transient pleasures, sufferings, and distractions, becomes all we know. But the moment we awaken to the divine light within, a new perspective emerges. We begin to see beyond the surface of reality, realizing that our true essence is not confined to our physical bodies or circumstances. We are part of a greater eternal reality, intricately connected to the source of all creation. This awakening is not just an intellectual understanding. It is a deep spiritual realization. The ancient Gnostic texts often speak of a divine spark that resides within each human soul, a fragment of the divine essence that longs to reunite with its source. By embracing this inner light, we can transcend the limitations of the material world and rediscover our connection to the true source of all creation. This is not about escaping reality, but seeing through the illusions that keep us bound to superficial concerns, fears, and desires. It is about recognizing that, at our core, we are not just physical beings, but spiritual entities with limitless potential. As you reflect on this profound message, consider what it means for your own life. The idea that you carry the spark of divinity within you is not merely symbolic, it is a call to action. To acknowledge this divine spark is to recognize that your spiritual journey is not about adhering to rigid doctrines, following religious rituals out of obligation, or seeking approval from external authorities. Instead, it is about reclaiming your own power, the power to shape your reality, to connect directly with the divine, and to realize your highest potential. This journey of self-realization is one of empowerment and liberation. Jesus' secret teachings were not meant to establish a new religious hierarchy or to impose a set of rules for people to blindly follow. They were meant to show you a path to spiritual enlightenment, a way to understand your true nature and your connection to the divine. His teachings were radical because they challenged the existing religious order, which often placed intermediaries between the individual and God. Jesus' message, as understood through these ancient texts, was that you don't need to rely on external structures or authorities to experience the divine. The divine is already within you, waiting to be recognized and embraced. To embrace the light within means to look beyond the superficialities of everyday life and the distractions that keep you from your true purpose. It means to cultivate a deeper understanding of yourself and your place in the universe. It is an invitation to break free from the limitations imposed by societal expectations, religious dogma, or even your own self-doubt. By awakening to your divine nature, you can transcend fear, rise above the material struggles that often define human existence, and live a life of purpose, clarity, and spiritual freedom. In doing so, you will realize that the divine is not something distant or unreachable. It is not confined to temples, churches, or holy books. It is something that you carry within you every moment of every day. This truth, kept hidden for centuries, empowers you to take ownership of your spiritual journey. It invites you to go beyond simply following religious traditions and to actively engage in the process of spiritual growth. The path to embracing the light within is not always easy, as it requires you to confront the illusions, fears, and limitations that have shaped your understanding of the world. But once you begin to see through these, you will find that the divine is not something foreign or unattainable. It is the very essence of who you are. You are not separate from the divine. You are an expression of it. And in this realization, you find true liberation. In summary, embracing the light within is about awakening to your true potential and reclaiming the divine power that has always been yours. It's a journey of self-discovery, one that transcends external rules and expectations and leads you to a higher understanding of yourself and your place in the cosmos. Jesus' secret teachings were designed to guide you on this path, to help you recognize that you are not a mere follower of divine laws, but an integral part of the divine itself. Through understanding and awakening, you can transform your life and reconnect with the infinite source of all creation. As we draw to a close, let this message resonate deeply. You are not merely a follower of God. You are an integral part of the divine itself. The ability to connect with the source of all creation is not something outside of you, but lies within. This revelation is both empowering and humbling, for with this divine knowledge comes a profound responsibility. The responsibility to question the beliefs you've held, to seek the truth beyond what you've been taught, and to awaken to the full potential of your true self. Jesus' hidden teachings are not just ancient wisdom meant for distant times. They are a timeless invitation for you to embark on your own personal journey of self-discovery and spiritual enlightenment. The veil has been lifted, and now the choice is yours. Will you step into this new understanding? Will you dare to reclaim your power, embrace the divine spark that burns within you, and let it illuminate your path? This is not just a personal journey, but one with the power to transform the world around you. As you awaken to your divine nature, you begin to reshape the reality you inhabit, reflecting the light of the divine that resides in all of us. The time is now, your time, to unlock the truth, embrace the light, and live as the radiant, divine being you were always meant to be. Before you go, don't forget to share this video with others who might be seeking their own spiritual awakening. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss future videos on uncovering more hidden truths. And we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts on this message in the comments below. Your journey is just beginning, and we look forward to walking it with you.